First contact. The starship Horizon drifted silently through the inky void, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Captain Ilara Chen stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the swirling purple and green planet that filled the view screen. Novum 3, a world shrouded in mystery and danger, loomed before them. Final approach, Captain, announced Navigator Tom Reeves, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. We'll be in orbit in 5 minutes. Ilara nodded, a mix of excitement and apprehension coursing through her veins. This mission was unlike any other in human history. Novum 3 had been avoided by every spacefaring race for centuries, known only as the home of a species so lethal that even the most advanced civilizations gave it a wide berth. Dr. Larson, Ilara called out, turning to the ship's xenobiologist. Any final thoughts before we make history? Dr. Astrid Larson looked up from her datapad, her blue eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Only that we're about to challenge everything the galaxy thinks it knows about the Novarians, Captain. If our theories are correct, we could be on the brink of the most significant breakthrough in interspecies relations in centuries. As the Horizon settled into a stable orbit, the crew bustled with activity. Sensor technicians scanned the planet's surface, mapping out potential landing zones, while the security team ran final checks on their equipment. The air was thick with anticipation. Captain, called out Communications Officer Zora Malik, her voice tinged with urgency. We're receiving a transmission from Galactic Council headquarters. It's the High Chancellor himself. Ilara straightened her uniform. Put him through. The stern face of High Chancellor Vox materialized on the main screen, his purple skin creased with concern. Captain Chen, I implore you to reconsider this mission. The Novarians are not to be trifled with. They have torn apart every expedition sent to their world. Your ship, your crew, you're putting everything at risk. Ilara met the Chancellor's gaze steadily. With all due respect, High Chancellor, we've prepared for this mission for years. Our research suggests that previous encounters with the Novarians were mishandled. We believe a peaceful approach is possible. Vox's expression darkened. Your optimism is admirable, Captain, but misplaced. The Galactic Council cannot sanction this mission. If you proceed, you do so without our support or protection. Understood, Chancellor, Ilara replied, her resolve unwavering. We're prepared to accept those terms. Horizon out. She nodded to Zara, who cut the transmission. A hush fell over the bridge. Ilara turned to face her crew, seeing a mix of determination and nervousness on their faces. I know you've all heard the stories, she began, her voice firm but empathetic. The Novarians have a fearsome reputation, but we're not here to confirm old fears. We're here to seek understanding where others have only found conflict. Each of you volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. Now, we have the chance to make a difference, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Dr. Larson stepped forward, her tablet displaying a holographic image of a Novarian, a towering insectoid creature with iridescent exoskeleton and multiple limbs ending in razor-sharp appendages. Our research suggests that the Novarians' aggressive behavior in past encounters was a response to perceived threats. Their sensory organs are highly advanced, possibly capable of detecting fear or hostile intent. If we approach with genuine curiosity and peaceful intentions, we may elicit a different response. Security Chief Marcus Reynolds, a burly man with a perpetual frown, spoke up. And if they decide to tear us apart anyway? Then we enact emergency protocols and get the hell out of there, Ilara replied bluntly. But we don't fire first, is that clear? A chorus of yes, Captain, echoed through the bridge. Ilara took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. All right, let's make history. Prepare the landing shuttle. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Ilara felt the weight of the moment settle upon her. They were about to land on a planet that had been the stuff of nightmares for countless species. The risks were enormous, but so were the potential rewards. If they could establish peaceful contact with the Novarians, It could reshape the political landscape of the entire galaxy. The journey to the planet's surface was tense. Ilara, along with Dr. Larson, Chief Reynolds, and a small team of scientists and security personnel, sat in silence as the shuttle cut through Novum 3's thick atmosphere. Strange, bioluminescent creatures could be seen floating in the sky, their ethereal forms parting as the shuttle descended. As they neared the landing zone, a clearing in what appeared to be a dense alien forest, Ilara's comm unit crackled to life. "Captain," came Navigator Ree's voice from the horizon, "we're detecting movement on the surface. Multiple large life forms converging on your position." Ilara exchanged glances with her team. This was it. Understood at horizon. Maintain orbit and be ready with emergency extraction if needed. The shuttle touched down with a soft thud. Through the viewport, they could see the alien landscape, a riot of colors and strange, twisting flora. But it was the shadows moving between the trees that held everyone's attention. "Remember," Ilara said, her hand hovering over the airlock release, "we're here in peace. No sudden movements, no aggressive actions. Dr. Larson, you take the lead on communication attempts." With a hiss, the airlock opened, and the team stepped out onto the surface of Novum 3. The air was thick and humid, filled with unfamiliar scents. And then they saw them, emerging from the forest like living nightmares, towering insectoid forms, their exoskeletons shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and change. The Novarians had arrived. Dr. Larson activated the universal translator, her voice steady as she spoke the carefully prepared greeting. "We come in peace, seeking understanding and friendship." For a moment, everything was still. The humans stood their ground, hearts pounding, as the Novarians regarded them with compound eyes that reflected the alien sky. Then, to everyone's astonishment, one of the Novarians stepped forward. It raised a limb, not in threat, but in a gesture that mirrored Larson's outstretched hand. A collective gasp went through the human team. First contact had been made, and against all odds, it appeared to be peaceful. As Ilara watched the interaction unfold, she knew that this was just the beginning. They had opened a door that had been closed for centuries. What lay beyond was unknown, filled with both promise and peril. But in that moment, on the surface of a world that had known only fear, hope blossomed. The galaxy would never be the same again. Understanding the misunderstood. The days following first contact with the Novarians were a whirlwind of activity and discovery. The human team, led by Captain Ilara Chen and Dr. Astrid Larson, worked tirelessly to establish a base of operations on Novum 3, all while navigating the delicate process of building trust with their alien hosts. As the twin suns of Novum 3 rose on the fifth day, Ilara stood at the entrance of their makeshift compound, watching Dr. Larson interact with a Novarian they had come to call Shimmer, due to its constantly shifting exoskeleton colors. The xenobiologist's enthusiasm was palpable as she used a combination of the universal translator and newly developed hand signals to communicate. "Fascinating," Astrid murmured, her eyes wide with wonder. "Their color changes aren't just for camouflage, it's a complex language in itself." Ilara approached, careful to move slowly and deliberately. They had quickly learned that sudden movements could startle the Novarians. "What have you discovered, Doctor?" Astrid turned, her face flushed with excitement. "Captain, it's incredible. The Novarians don't just communicate vocally or through pheromones like we initially thought. Their exoskeletons can produce intricate color patterns that convey complex ideas. It's like a living, breathing form of writing." Shimmer, sensing the topic of conversation, rippled through a series of dazzling color changes. The universal translator struggled to keep up, spitting out fragmented phrases: curiosity, welcome, caution. "They're as fascinated by us as we are by them," Astrid explained, "but there's still so much wariness. Centuries of isolation and misunderstanding have left their mark." Ilara nodded thoughtfully. "Keep at it, Doctor. Your work is invaluable." She turned to head back into the compound, but paused as her comm unit buzzed. "Chen here." "Captain," came the voice of communications officer Zara Malik from the orbiting horizon. "We're receiving multiple transmissions from various species. Word of our peaceful contact with the Novarians is spreading fast. The Galactic Council is in an uproar." Ilara sighed. She had expected this, but not so soon. "Patch me through to High Chancellor Vox. It's time we addressed this head-on." Moments later, the holographic form of the High Chancellor materialized before her. His usually composed features were twisted with concern and a hint of anger. "Captain Chen," he began, his tone clipped, "your actions have thrown the galactic community into chaos. Do you have any idea of the diplomatic nightmare you've created?" Ilara stood her ground. "With all due respect, Chancellor, we've opened a door to understanding a species that has been feared and misunderstood for centuries. Isn't that worth a little chaos?" Vox's eyes narrowed. "A little chaos? Captain, we're receiving reports of panic on worlds bordering Novarian space. There are calls for preemptive military action, fears of Novarian expansion now that they're in contact with outsiders. Your peaceful mission may have ignited a powder keg. Or," Ilara countered, "it could be the first step towards lasting peace. Chancellor, I urge you to see the potential here. The Novarians aren't the mindless killers everyone feared. They're intelligent, curious, and capable of peaceful interaction. We just needed to approach them the right way." The High Chancellor was silent for a moment, his internal struggle visible even through the hologram. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy. "You have one standard week, Captain. 1 week to provide concrete evidence that the Novarians can be integrated into the galactic community without threat. If you fail, I will have no choice but to recommend a full quarantine of Novum 3, with your team still on it." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Ilara standing alone, the weight of the ultimatum settling on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. Returning to where Astrid was still engrossed in conversation with Shimmer, Ilara interrupted gently. "Dr. Larson, we need to accelerate our efforts. The galaxy is watching, and not everyone is happy about our breakthroughs." Astrid's brow furrowed with concern. "What do you need from me, Captain?" "Everything you can give," Ilara replied. "We need to understand their society, their motivations, their history, anything that can help us prove to the Galactic Council that the Novarians aren't a threat." As if sensing the gravity of the situation, Shimmer's colors swirled in a pattern it had come to associate with concern. The translator crackled. "Danger, outsiders, protect." Astrid's eyes widened. "Captain, I think Shimmer is warning us. The Novarians, they might be as afraid of the outside galaxy as it is of them." Ilara nodded grimly. "Then we need to bridge that gap, and fast. Gather the team. We're going to need everyone's expertise on this." Over the next few days, the human team worked around the clock. They delved deeper into Novarian culture, piecing together a history of a species that had evolved in isolation, their powerful abilities a result of their harsh world rather than any inherent aggression. Security Chief Reynolds, initially the most skeptical of the team, made a breakthrough in understanding Novarian defensive behaviors. "It's like a highly evolved fight-or-flight response," he explained during a team briefing. "Their speed and strength, it's not for hunting. It's pure self-defense. Previous encounters went wrong because the Novarians perceived threats where there were none." Dr. Larson's linguistic work progressed rapidly, helped by the Novarians' own curiosity. "They're natural scientists," she reported excitedly. "Every interaction is an experiment for them. They're learning us as much as we're learning them." As the deadline approached, Ilara felt a mix of hope and apprehension. They had made incredible progress, but would it be enough? The fate of not just their mission, but potentially the entire galaxy's approach to new species hung in the balance. On the eve of the High Chancellor's deadline, a commotion outside the compound drew everyone's attention. Ilara rushed out to find a group of Novarians, led by Shimmer, gathered at the perimeter. Their exoskeletons were a riot of colors, pulsing in complex patterns that overwhelmed the translator. Astrid, breathless with excitement, turned to Ilara. "Captain, they want to show us something important." Ilara hesitated only for a moment. This could be the breakthrough they needed, or it could be walking into unknown danger. But the mission had been about trust from the beginning. "All right," she said, decision made. "We'll go with them. Minimal team, non-threatening gear. Let's see what they want to show us." As they followed the Novarians into the alien forest, the strange flora glowing in the twilight, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something monumental. Whatever lay ahead would either doom their mission or change the course of galactic history. The fate of 2 species, and perhaps many more, rested on what they would discover in the depths of Novum 3's mysteries. Revelations in the deep. The human team followed their Novarian guides through the bioluminescent forest, each step taking them further from the safety of their compound and deeper into the unknown. Captain Ilara Chen led the way, with Dr. Astrid Larsen close behind, her eyes darting from one alien wonder to another. Security Chief Marcus Reynolds brought up the rear, his hand never far from his non-lethal stunner. As they traveled, the forest grew denser, the air heavy with strange, sweet scents. Astrid's translator worked overtime, trying to decipher the constant color changes rippling through the Novarians' exoskeletons. "They keep referring to something called the heart," Astrid whispered to Ilara. "I think that's where we're heading." After what seemed like hours of trekking through the alien wilderness, the group emerged into a vast cavern. The sight that greeted them left them all speechless. The cavern walls pulsed with a soft, blue light, revealing intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change. At the center stood a massive crystalline structure, easily the size of a small starship. It throbbed with energy, sending out waves of color that the Novarians' exoskeletons seemed to absorb and reflect. "Incredible," breathed Astrid, her scientific mind already racing with possibilities. It's like a living supercomputer." Shimmer stepped forward, its colors swirling in a complex dance. The translator struggled to keep up. Heart, connection, all one, understand. Ilara watched in awe as more Novarians emerged from hidden crevices in the cavern walls, gathering around the crystal. "Dr. Larsen, what are we seeing here?" Astrid's eyes were wide with realization. "Captain, I think this is the key to everything. This crystal, this heart, it's not just a computer. It's a hub, a central nervous system for the entire species. The Novarians they're a hive mind." As if to confirm her words, the Novarians began to move in perfect synchronization, their exoskeletons flashing in harmonious patterns. The crystal pulsed brighter, and suddenly, Ilara felt a presence in her mind, alien, yet somehow familiar. Images flooded her consciousness, the history of the Novarian species, that evolution from simple hive insects to the complex, telepathic beings they were now. She saw their first encounters with other species, felt their fear and confusion at the violent reactions they received. The crystal, the heart, had been their refuge, allowing them to retreat into their collective consciousness and shut out a galaxy that didn't understand them. When the vision faded, Ilara found herself on her knees, gasping. Around her, she saw Astrid and Marcus in similar states of shock. Did you see that?" Marcus asked, his usual stoic demeanor shaken. Astrid nodded, tears in her eyes. "They've been trying to communicate like this all along. Every encounter, every attack, it was them attempting to connect, to understand, but without the proper context. It was misinterpreted as aggression," Ilara finished, standing slowly. She turned to Shimmer, seeing the alien in a completely new light. "You brought us here to show us the truth." Shimmer's colors rippled in affirmation. The translator, now somehow clearer, conveyed truth, understanding, hope. Ilara's mind raced. This changed everything. The Novarians weren't just peaceful. They were a species built on connection, on shared consciousness. Their fearsome reputation was a tragic misunderstanding, centuries in the making. "We need to get this information to the Galactic Council immediately," Ilara said, her voice filled with renewed determination. This isn't just about proving the Novarians aren't a threat. This could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself. As they prepared to leave the cavern, Shimmer approached Ilara. Its colors shifted to a pattern they hadn't seen before, and the translator fell silent. Instead, Ilara felt a gentle probe in her mind, a request. Understanding instinctively, Ilara nodded her consent. In that moment, a connection formed between human and Novarian, a bridge across the gulf of species. Through this link, Ilara understood the Novarians' deepest hopes and fears, their longing to rejoin the galactic community, tempered by their fear of misunderstanding and conflict. When the connection faded, Ilara found herself blinking back tears. She looked at Shimmer with new eyes, seeing not an alien being, but a kindred spirit. "We'll make them understand," she promised. "Your isolation ends now." The journey back to the compound was filled with excited chatter as the team discussed the implications of their discovery. Astrid was already drafting preliminary reports, her fingers flying over her datapad. Even Marcus seemed energized, his earlier skepticism replaced by a sense of wonder. As they emerged from the forest, the compound came into view, bathed in the light of Novum 3's setting suns. Ilara's comm unit buzzed insistently, multiple messages from the horizon, and one priority transmission from High Chancellor Vox. Taking a deep breath, Ilara opened the channel. "High Chancellor, you're not going to believe what we've discovered." Vox's holographic form flickered into view, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Captain Chen, your time is almost up. I hope, for all our sakes, that you have something substantial to report." Ilara smiled, a newfound confidence in her voice. "Chancellor, we don't just have a report. We have a revelation that will change the course of galactic history. The Novarians aren't just peaceful. They're possibly the most advanced telepathic species we've ever encountered, and they want to rejoin the galactic community." The High Chancellor's eyes widened in surprise. "That's a bold claim, Captain. I'll need more than your word on this." "Understood, sir. We're preparing a full data package now, including direct telepathic recordings. But more importantly..." Ilara paused, knowing her next words would be a gamble. "We'd like to request a Galactic Council delegation to Novum 3. It's time for the galaxy to meet the real Novarians." There was a long pause as Vox processed this request. Finally, he spoke, his voice carefully measured. "Very well, Captain. You'll have your delegation. But be warned, if this is anything less than what you've promised, the consequences will be severe." As the transmission ended, Ilara turned to her team, seeing the same mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces that she felt. "Well, folks," she said with a wry smile, "looks like we're about to host the diplomatic event of the century. Let's make it count." The next few days would be crucial. They had opened a door, but walking through it would require careful navigation. As Ilara watched Shimmer and the other Novarians interact with her team, she felt a surge of hope. They had come to Novum 3 seeking understanding, and they had found so much more. Now, it was time to share that understanding with the rest of the galaxy. The stage was set for a new chapter in galactic history, one of unity, understanding, and the breaking down of barriers between species. And it had all started with a human crew willing to see beyond fear and reach out in friendship. The Galactic Summit. The days leading up to the arrival of the Galactic Council delegation were a flurry of activity. Captain Ilara Chen and her team worked tirelessly alongside their Novarian hosts to prepare for what would undoubtedly be a historic meeting. As the appointed day arrived, tension filled the air. The human compound had been expanded and modified to accommodate the various species that would be attending. Shimmer and a group of Novarians stood with Ilara and her team, their exoskeletons shimmering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Remember," Ilara addressed her crew, "today isn't just about proving the Novarians aren't a threat. It's about forging a new path for interspecies relations. Let's make every moment count." The sky rumbled as a sleek diplomatic shuttle broke through Novum 3's atmosphere. As it touched down, Ilara straightened her uniform and stepped forward, Shimmer at her side. The shuttle's doors hissed open, revealing a diverse group of beings. High Chancellor Vox led the procession, his purple skin glistening in Novum 3's alien sunlight. Behind him came representatives from a dozen different species, each regarding the Novarians with a mix of curiosity and trepidation. High Chancellor Ilara greeted, bowing slightly. "Welcome to Novum 3. Vox's eyes darted between Ilara and Shimmer, his expression unreadable. "Captain Chen, I trust you're prepared to back up your extraordinary claims." Before Ilara could respond, Shimmer stepped forward. Its exoskeleton rippled with a complex pattern of colors, and to everyone's surprise, a clear, melodious voice emanated from a small device attached to its thorax. "Esteemed delegates," Shimmer spoke, the new translator converting its color patterns into audible speech, "we welcome you to our world with open hearts and minds. For too long, fear and misunderstanding have kept us apart. Today, we hope to bridge that divide." A murmur ran through the delegation. Vox's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly composed himself. "Indeed, we are eager to learn the truth about your people." The next few hours were a whirlwind of presentations and demonstrations. Dr. Larson presented her linguistic findings, showing how the Novarians' color-based language had been misinterpreted as aggressive displays in the past. Security Chief Reynolds demonstrated the Novarians' defensive capabilities, emphasizing their non-aggressive nature. But the true turning point came when Shimmer invited the delegates to experience the heart. As they entered the bioluminescent cavern, gasps of awe echoed off the walls. The crystal pulsed with energy, its light reflecting off the diverse assemblage of alien beings. "What you see before you," Ilara explained, "is the center of Novarian consciousness. It's not just a computer or a power source, it's the focal point of their entire species' shared mind." Shimmer stepped forward, its colors swirling invitingly. "We offer you a glimpse into our world, our thoughts, our very essence. Who among you will be the first to bridge the gap between our kinds?" There was a moment of hesitation among the delegates. Then, to everyone's surprise, High Chancellor Vox stepped forward. As the representative of the Galactic Council, he said, his voice solemn, "I volunteer for this honor." Ilara watched with bated breath as Shimmer gently placed a limb on Vox's shoulder. The Chancellor's eyes widened, then slowly closed as the telepathic connection formed. For several long moments, the cavern was silent save for the soft pulsing of the heart. When Vox's eyes finally opened, they were filled with tears. He looked at Shimmer, then at the other Novarians, with a newfound understanding. "All this time," he whispered, "we never knew. The depth of your culture, your hopes, your fears, it's overwhelming." One by one, the other delegates stepped forward, each experiencing the Novarian consciousness. With each connection, the atmosphere in the cavern shifted from tense anticipation to profound wonder. As the last delegate completed their connection, Ilara stepped forward. "High Chancellor, esteemed delegates, you've now experienced firsthand the true nature of the Novarian people. They are not the monsters of legend, but a species of deep thought, complex emotions, and a genuine desire for peace and understanding." Vox nodded slowly, still visibly moved by the experience. "Captain Chen, Dr. Larson, and all of you," he gestured to the human team, "you have done the galaxy a great service. The misunderstandings of the past end today." Turning to Shimmer and the other Novarians, Vox continued, "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I extend an official invitation for the Novarian species to join our interstellar community. Your unique perspective and abilities will undoubtedly enrich us all." A wave of color rippled through the assembled Novarians, a display of joy that needed no translation. Shimmer stepped forward, its voice filled with emotion. "We accept your invitation with gratitude and hope. Let this be the beginning of a new era of cooperation and understanding." As the delegates began to discuss the practicalities of integrating the Novarians into galactic society, Ilara found a quiet moment with her team. "We did it," Astrid said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. We actually did it. Marcus, usually stoic, allowed himself a small smile. Never thought I'd see the day when the most feared species in the galaxy would be welcomed with open arms. Ilara looked around at her crew, feeling a surge of pride. This is why we became explorers, not just to chart new worlds, but to bridge divides and expand our understanding of the universe. As the discussions continued late into the night, plans were made for cultural exchanges, scientific collaborations, and diplomatic missions. The galaxy was about to change in ways no one could have predicted just a few short weeks ago. But even as excitement filled the air, Ilara couldn't shake a nagging feeling. They had achieved the impossible true, but she knew that integrating the Novarians into galactic society would come with its own set of challenges. And somewhere out there in the vast expanse of space, other misunderstood species might be waiting, hoping for their chance to be seen for who they truly were. The adventure, Ilara realized, was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Growing pains. In the months following the historic Galactic Summit on Novum 3, the integration of the Novarians into the wider galactic community progressed at a rapid pace. Captain Ilara Chen and her team found themselves at the center of this monumental effort, serving as bridges between the Novarians and the various species of the Galactic Council. Novarian delegates, led by Shimmer, began appearing at council meetings, their shifting colors adding a new dimension to diplomatic discussions. Scientific exchange programs flourished, with researchers from across the galaxy flocking to Novum 3 to study the heart and the unique telepathic abilities of its inhabitants. However, as with any great change, challenges soon arose. On a particularly tense day, Ilara found herself mediating a heated debate in the newly established Novarian embassy on the galactic capital. The Novarians' telepathic abilities give them an unfair advantage in negotiations, argued Ambassador Zix, a reptilian being from the Saurian Confederation. How can we trust that they're not reading our minds and manipulating us? Shimmer's colors swirled in patterns of frustration and hurt. The translator conveyed its response. Our abilities are not weapons to be used against others. They are a means of understanding, of bridging gaps between minds. Ilara stepped in, her voice calm but firm. Ambassador Zix, the Novarians have been nothing but transparent about their abilities. They've even offered to teach shielding techniques to those who are concerned about privacy. That's not enough, Zix hissed. Some worlds are already talking about closing their borders to Novarian visitors. There's too much fear, too much uncertainty. As the argument escalated, Ilara realized that they were facing a crisis. The initial wonder and excitement of first contact were wearing off, replaced by age-old fears and prejudices. If they couldn't find a way to address these concerns, the dream of true integration could crumble. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Security Chief Marcus Reynolds burst into the room, his face grim. "Captain, we have a situation. A group of extremists has taken control of a research station on Novum 3. They're threatening to destroy the heart unless all Novarians leave council space immediately." The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Ilara's mind raced. This wasn't just a diplomatic crisis, it was a threat to the very existence of the Novarian species. She turned to Shimmer, seeing the fear and determination in its swirling colors. "We need to act fast," Ilara said, "and we need to do it together. This is our chance to show the galaxy what true cooperation looks like." As they rushed to formulate a response, Ilara knew that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Novarians, but the future of interspecies relations in the galaxy. The true test of their grand experiment in understanding and cooperation had arrived. Unity in diversity. The situation on Novum 3 was dire. The extremist group, calling themselves Purity of Space, had barricaded themselves in a research station dangerously close to the heart. Their demands were clear. All Novarians must leave Galactic Council space within 24 hours, or they would detonate explosives capable of destroying the heart and ending the Novarian species as they knew it. Ilara, along with Shimmer, High Chancellor Vox, and representatives from various council races convened an emergency meeting aboard the Horizon, now in orbit around Novum 3. A direct assault is too risky, Marcus reported, pointing to holographic schematics of the research station. Any wrong move could trigger the explosives. Dr. Larson chimed in, and we can't evacuate the Novarians. Their consciousness is too intrinsically linked to the heart. Destroying it would be tantamount to genocide. The weight of the situation hung heavy in the air. Then Shimmer stepped forward, its colors pulsing with an idea. What if we could show them the truth? Let them experience our consciousness as you all did. Vox shook his head. It's a noble idea, but how? They're not going to simply invite us in for a friendly chat. Ilara's eyes lit up. Maybe they don't have to. She turned to Shimmer. The heart amplifies with telepathic abilities, right? What if we could boost that signal, broadcast it to the entire station? A planet-wide telepathic broadcast. Astrid gasped. It's never been done before. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. Then we'll give it the energy it needs, Ilara said, determination in her voice. She turned to the assembled representatives. If we link our ships, create a power network to channel energy to the heart, could it work? The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Ships from every council race formed a grid around Novum 3, channeling their combined power to the heart. On the surface, Shimmer and a group of Novarians gathered around the crystal, preparing for the most significant telepathic event in their history. As the deadline approached, Ilara stood on the bridge of the Horizon, watching the power levels climb. We're at maximum capacity, her engineer reported. It's now or never, Captain. Ilara took a deep breath. Shimmer, are you ready? The response came through clearly. We are ready. May our minds touch theirs, and may understanding bloom. Initiate the broadcast, Ilara commanded. The heart pulsed with blinding light, visible even from orbit. A wave of telepathic energy washed over the planet, touching every mind, including those of the extremists. On view screens across the fleet, they watched as the barricades around the research station fell. The extremists emerged, many in tears, their weapons discarded. Hours later, as the crisis teams finished securing the station, Ilara met with the leader of the extremist group, a human woman named Sarah. I never knew, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Their minds, their hopes, their love for life. How could we have been so wrong? Ilara placed a hand on her shoulder. Fear of the unknown can drive us to terrible things. But today, we've proven that understanding can overcome even the deepest fears. In the days that followed, news of the event spread across the galaxy. The image of ships from every council race joining together to save the Novarians became a powerful symbol of unity. 1 month later, Ilara stood beside Shimmer in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. High Chancellor Vox addressed the assembled delegates. Today, we don't just welcome the Novarians as full members of our galactic community. We also inaugurate the Interspecies Understanding Initiative, a program dedicated to fostering empathy and connection between all sapient beings. As applause filled the hall, Ilara felt a gentle touch on her mind, Shimmer sharing its joy and gratitude. She smiled, knowing that while challenges would always arise, they had laid the foundation for a future where diversity was celebrated, not feared. The story of the Novarians would be told for generations to come, a testament to the power of reaching out across the stars with open minds and open hearts. And for Ilara and her crew, it was just the beginning of a new age of exploration, understanding, and unity in the vast, wondrous tapestry of galactic life.